I'm going to start this off by saying that most people that live in or around my apartment are on drugs or drink heavily. The police are here often, which has made me remember voices, faces, and names of people who I don't talk to. Last night, around 1 a.m., I heard coughing right outside of my living room window. This was not concerning on its own because people pace and walk around here at night. My dog sometimes barks at people outside. I turn to tell him to be quiet, and the person outside starts groaning. My dog instantly starts growling, a deep growl. I've never heard him do such a low growl until last night. The person starts saying, "Help! Help!" But there's no urgency, no pain. I ran into the bathroom and the man stops. I thought that I was hearing things and went back to the living room. Once I sat back down, the man started groaning again. I literally froze and couldn't move. My dog started growling again and his fur was standing up. That helped me to move again, and we went into my bedroom. The man stopped again. I ran through who it could be in my head, and I knew this man's voice wasn't familiar. I stepped into the living room again, and the man loudly called for help. "Help!" I called the cops and explained what was going on. The cop asked if I could see anything out of my window, and I said no. Then I was told that someone would be coming to check on me. The second I hung up, I heard "help" and more groaning. "Help!" I ran into the hallway and watched a figure walk across the parking lot from my kitchen. My apartment is silent, apart from the rain and my dog's breathing. I wait 20 minutes and go back into the living room. Then I hear the man say "help" with more groaning. I called the cops again, and 2 officers showed up. I stepped outside to talk because my dog kept barking at them. As I was explaining the situation to one of the cops, I noticed a dry spot on the concrete. It looked like someone had been standing there for a long time. The officer even noticed and called the other cop over there to look. They both looked around my building and told me to make sure my door stays locked. Now tonight, it's 1 a.m. again. I was watching a movie and my dog was sleeping by the door. He starts doing the low growl again. I'm terrified and can't move. My dog jumps up and barks a few times. I'm even more scared now because of the noise my screen door just made. It doesn't latch unless you pull it hard, and it hits the door frame twice if you don't latch it. It hit the door frame twice, and I know that I latched it earlier. I have been hearing tapping on my living room window, the same man's voice across the parking lot, and the screen door being messed with. I did get the guts to open my front door to lock the screen door, so no one can get in, but I'm still scared. Two years ago, my parents decided they were leaving for the 4th of July weekend. I had just turned 17, so me, being my immature self, decided to have a huge pool party. Me and my best friend Curly decided to start getting stuff ready and hit people up to bring beer and shit. So nighttime came around, and by 10 p.m. there were already like 70 people going hard at partying. 12 came around and the number had almost tripled. Everyone was going hard, including me. About 30 minutes later, I noticed a man come through my back gate. I didn't find it off. I just assumed he was there with a friend group, and the front door was locked. A little bit goes by, and I look around to see if everybody is still having a good time. And I see the man sitting alone in the corner of my yard. I go up to him and ask him if he's okay. He looks up at me, and I realized he's a middle-aged man at a teenage party. He gave me a chilling look, as if he was confused or angry. He was white, with deep blue eyes. He replied, "Yeah, I'm good." Then he got up and walked towards my house. I figured he left. Around 4 a.m., a lot of people had left, and there were only like 10 of us there. The others left after that, and it was just me and my best friend. We decided to go to bed at around 5:30. I woke up to my best friend yelling downstairs. I ran down there and I saw the man running out of my back door. We called the cops and the man was arrested a week later. He was a child predator who raped teenagers and then killed them slowly and painfully. If my best friend wasn't there, I don't know what would have happened. I have a family friend who owns a beautiful and very old house in a wealthy suburb of a large city. She was going on vacation and her husband was leaving for a business trip, so she asked me to cat sit for her. I had done it for her before and adored the house and area, so I agreed. The house appeared very small and quaint from the street, but was actually very rambling and had a bizarre layout, and it never seemed to end. The basement was a walkout with 2 doors and 2 staircases that led to the main floor. This house was so weirdly designed that you would find rooms and hallways and doors you didn't even realize existed, even after days of staying there. I spent most of my time in the front room of the home, which had a very large window facing the street and no curtains. One night, I was studying on the couch in the front room, in front of the window. It was so pitch black out that I couldn't see anything outside, even though I was just inches away from the window. I started to feel extremely on edge and uncomfortable, and like I was being observed. Around 2:30 a.m., I shut off all the lights in the house and retired to a small bedroom in the middle right side of the main floor that had a window with blinds. I watched a few videos on YouTube, making sure to leave the door open a little bit because the cats like to come in and out throughout the night. I thought I heard a male voice coming from the basement at one point, but I dismissed it as me being creeped out by being alone in this old, rambling house. Around 3 a.m., I decided to shut everything down and go to bed. For the first time in hours, the house was completely quiet, because I was no longer reciting information to myself during my studying or watching any loud videos. However, that silence was fleeting. It was quickly broken by what sounded like a very large man loudly stomping up the stairs from the basement. Thus began the most terrifying experience of my life, during which I was certain that my life was in great danger. This person was not trying to creep around the house or be subtle. They made no attempt to hide the sound of their steps. They very deliberately and loudly clomped their way up the staircase, like they were supposed to be there, entering this house at 3 a.m. Because of this, I thought perhaps the owner's husband had come home from his business trip early and didn't realize I was still there. I called out,
"Hello?"
in a harsh, questioning way to indicate that I was not expecting anyone to be there. I was hoping it was the husband and that he would maybe respond back, perhaps confused or apologetic for scaring me. But instead, there was silence. As my voice rang out, the steps stopped and no words were spoken. I knew then that something was wrong. I got up from the bed and just stared at the crack in the door, waiting for something to happen. Then, the timid female cat bolts into the room, meowing like crazy and winding around my legs, seeming distressed. This cat was so timid that she would run away from me at the slightest noise or movement. But now she was so spooked that she was running towards me for comfort, even though I had been calling out aggressively and jumping out of my bed. Then I knew that whoever it was not someone this cat was familiar with, and therefore no one who had any business being in that house. I went to the bed and picked up my cell phone and dialed 911. Then I picked up an iron, closed the bedroom door, and leaned against it. It had no lock, so I had to just hope that they wouldn't try to push their way in. I was on the phone with the operator and pretty certain my life was going to end. I was shaking so hard that the door was violently rattling in the door frame. At one point, the operator told me to listen to what was going on, so I forced myself to stop shaking so I could hear. But when I heard movement, I let myself shake again so the door would rattle and I wouldn't have to hear them walking around. If I was going to be killed by this person, I didn't want to go through the dread of hearing them walking towards me. Eventually the cops showed up and I had to dart out of the room and run to the front of the house to unlock the front door. They came in and spent all of 5 minutes searching this chaotically laid out, rambling house. One of them even commented, "It just keeps going," in disbelief. They didn't find anything. At first, I thought I must be going crazy because there was no question in my mind that I heard the footsteps. But the police are telling me all the doors in the basement are locked. They ended up leaving, but because of all the rooms and furniture and little weird nooks and crannies in the house, I just felt like a 5-minute search was nowhere near enough to actually find someone who wanted to conceal themselves there. I ended up calling my mother at 3 a.m., crying, and she came over. Then I realized something. The intruder would have walked right past my obvious pile of cash on the kitchen table, and it was untouched. This made me think that they weren't there to steal. I have often wondered if the person had been waiting for me to go to sleep, just hyping themselves up to come upstairs and do whatever the hell they were planning, and perhaps hearing me aggressively call out to them and call the cops deterred them that night. It terrifies me to think of what would have happened had I been asleep, or what that person was planning, having walked up the stairs so boldly like that when it was obvious that someone was home. We noticed the next day that the laundry room window in the basement was open. Apparently, the police hadn't even noticed. I searched the news in that area online, and there had been a break-in incident just weeks prior where a woman woke up in the middle of the night to an intruder sitting in the dark watching her sleep, who then proceeded to rape and terribly assault her. I've been messed up over the whole thing since.